Welcome to the Life After Sugar podcast, the podcast that's not just about sugar, but about your relationship with it and also with food and especially with yourself. So if you want to discover your life after sugar and hear inspiring stories from all kinds of people who also cut out sugar in their way, at their pace, for their own reasons, this is the podcast for you. Because when you take away the sugar, you can finally discover the real sweetness in your life. I'm your host, Netta Gorman, and in this week's episode, my special guest is Sarah, who's a functional medicine nutritionist and who talks about her own healing journey with Lyme disease. Who would have thought that Lyme disease had any connection with sugar? But you'll find out that connection in just a minute. But first, I just wanted to tell you that if you're looking for some free resources, then I have plenty for you. First, download my 5 tips to get rid of cravings. And those 5 tips may not be what you think they are. So go to aftersugarclub.com and download your 5 tips today. And while you're at aftersugarclub.com, why not take the cravings quiz? I created this cravings quiz specifically to help you start thinking more deeply about what triggers your cravings. And when you do this quiz, you'll get your personalized score as well as my practical tips to help you take your first step to get rid of cravings. Those free resources are at aftersugarclub.com. And also, come check out the Life After Sugar Facebook page and subscribe to the Life After Sugar YouTube channel, as well as my Instagram account at My Life After Sugar, which is where you'll get all kinds of inspiration so that you can see that it's perfectly possible to live a happy and active life, even if you don't eat sugar. You can also check out my TikTok account at Netta_lifeaftersugar. All right, so here's my chat with Sarah. All right, so I'm here today with Sarah. And Sarah, can you tell us a little bit about your background with food and especially with sugar?
Yes, absolutely. I'm Sarah Reilly. I'm a functional medicine nutritionist, owner and founder of Get Nourished, which is a virtual functional nutrition company that serves clients globally, and love helping my clients get to the root cause of what is driving their burnout, exhaustion, stubborn weight, bloating, and pain, and helping them correct all of those symptoms really naturally, getting to the root cause of what's driving it, and then helping to correct those patterns naturally.
Wow. All right. And where did you grow up?
I grew up in California. I grew
Okay.
up partially a little bit out of the country when I was a little girl. I lived in Mexico. And then I lived most of my youth in California, and then a little bit of my youth also in Tasmania,
Wow.
Australia. Hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
And did you grow up with what we call the standard American diet?
No, I was actually very blessed that I grew up with parents who were very focused on healthy, natural food. Um, my mom did all of our baking. She made all of our fruit roll-ups. She made our jerky. She made our pickles. And my dad was very against us having sugars and pops and sugary cereals. So I always wanted what the neighbors were having. I got to go to my neighbors to have the Twinkies and the Apple Jacks, and the sugary cereals. But
Yeah.
the sugariest thing we got was Raisin Bran. But my mom made our own granola, and I feel very blessed for my parents having been so conscious um, with our food that we had when we were little.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you didn't, well, I mean, I guess if you were having those things at your neighbors, you didn't feel like you were actually missing out that much.
No, it just made me want to go to my neighbors. When you're 8 years old and other kids are eating Twinkies, there's a novel factor about it, right? But I'm so glad that it wasn't in my close periphery at home, because
Yeah.
child, I actually had a weight issue. My sister didn't. She was the skinny ballerina, and I just came in a different model. I was, chunky, called Chunky Monkey, and Fat Sarah, and Butterball, and all those things. And then it made me very conscious about what I was eating, at the tender age of 9. When you start to be more self-aware, like, why are people calling me fat? And it wasn't like we were eating a lot of sugar at home. I just had a different metabolism, and my I was processing food different from my sister, which is also something that has been such a mystery and a big part of my work as a nutritionist too, as I work with clients who have such different metabolism and what's really driving that.
Yeah, because it feels like, what you eat affects your weight and it's no more complex than that, but it is more complex than that.
Oh, it's much more complex. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So
Um,
you started getting more self-conscious about your body, how you looked at the tender age of 9, as you were saying. How were
mhm.
your teenage years?
My teenage years, I became also more conscious of eating. My teenage years, I got more into sugar and things like that, but not sugar addict by any means. Eating things that, thought were, at that day, when I was a teenager, we thought like a Snickers was healthy because it had peanuts in it, right? Or almonds, whichever it is. I can't remember.
Yeah.
It was chewy and gooey and all those good things, right? Um, and then at that time, you thought having a Diet Pepsi was, the healthy way to go. This is, I'm aging myself here, but I'll be 55 this summer. And so in that time, that's when we thought, Doritos didn't seem like a bad food. A Diet Pepsi was the healthier version than the normal Pepsi.
Mm.
But as you evolve and grow and learn about nutrition, I did in a very stark way. Um, I became very conscious about my food consumption um, as I was a teenager. And it was more of the eat less, lose weight, right? Exercise more, eat less
Yeah.
mentality. And that just didn't work for me. It didn't work for me. Um, until later on, I became a nutritionist and I learned that there's so many more levels to it. And then I came to a point through my own research and working that I had finally effortless weight loss of a good 20 pounds.
Wow. Now, look, that sounds like magic.
Yeah,
Effortless weight loss. It just is not possible. That's what most
yeah,
of us believe. So, how did
right.
that happen?
Yeah. Well, it's a matter of like a variety of different things being in place. But where I personally left out sugar, because there came a dividing point for me in sugar, because it was getting into my life, right? In higher amounts than it should have. But at 25, I contracted Lyme disease. And that teaches you a whole new power of sugar in your system when it's feeding a bacteria,
Hmm.
right? And so I literally, at the age, I was finally diagnosed at 32, but it was diagnosed 8 years late. And it was a hot mess when it was diagnosed finally. And at that point, I learned that the bacteria feeds on sugar. And
Yeah.
so I just cut it all out of my diet, all sugar out of my diet. And I think that was definitely something that helped me heal. That was part of my healing. Because something we forget is that sugar, it's feeding the opportunistic bacteria and the opportunistic viruses in our body.
Yeah, absolutely. And, going from suffering with Lyme disease to making that connection with, wait a minute, sugar's feeding that bacteria, that is a huge leap. So,
Mhm.
how did you make that connection?
It was in my own research I was doing. This was before I was a nutritionist. I was so, so, so sick with Lyme disease, and I was doing everything I could to just get the upper hand. And just in my reading and my research and how sugar, feeds the bacteria. And at that point, I just made it an executive decision for myself. To me, eating poison was feeding the thing that was felt like it was killing me,
Yeah.
right? And so I wanted to starve it. That was I wanted to starve the Lyme disease. And so I wanted to leave all of the carbs and all of the sugar out of my diet. I had some carbs, but the sugars were out. And I could
Wow.
feel it when I had them because as soon as they were all out, and then I would have something like a piece of candy, I could feel the drop in my system. Because not only are, and I've seen it happen under dark field microscope, where you have sugar and literally the spirochetes will come out to feed upon the sugar in the bloodstream and then be active in their own biochemistry. And so you're giving them this huge fuel
Yeah.
to activate, right? And so, and then not only that, but then Lyme is never acting alone. Then you've got all the opportunistic infections and viruses and things like that that also utilize that sugar for their own metabolism as well.
Yeah. Wow.
And then it creates an acidic base and it lowers your white blood cells significantly. If you have too much of it, it blunts the neutrophils. And so you just really have to, in a case like that, you just have to go gung ho and get that stuff out of your system. And so I did, thank goodness, at a young, I was 32 when I was finally diagnosed, and that's when I was just willing to do anything to get my life back.
Yeah, that is young, and it took that for you to stop eating sugar. And how difficult was it for you to cut out sugar altogether?
It wasn't because there were such high stakes for me, right? I didn't feel, here's the thing, like it was the type of thing before that, if I had sugar, I wanted more sugar, right? I wanted more, as we
Yeah.
do. It's a drug. It does all these biochemical bells and whistles in our bodies. And I wanted more sugar. And it became kind of a feed forward process, get a little bit, and it's still the same to this day. If I get a little bit of sugar, it's gonna spark my cravings, right? But I also become very hypoglycemic when I had Lyme disease as well, severely hypoglycemic to the point of just really bad. And so like almost passing out type of thing. And so it really, really, really helped me establish balance because hypoglycemia and the blood sugar roller coaster are no place when you've got a severe chronic, type of infection like that.
Yeah,
So,
totally. Things had to get that bad for you to say, look, I'm not going to feed the bacteria that feeds my Lyme disease, makes me feel so awful. And that, did you feel like you were sort of backed into a corner? You had no choice, which made stopping sugar that much easier?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
makes sense.
absolutely.
Makes
Hmm.
sense.
Hmm.
So, so you're relatively young, early 30s, which most of us, don't get to making that kind of, I feel backed into a corner by my own body decision until way later in life. What types of positive benefits did you experience when you cut sugar?
Um, well, for me, it was such a mixed bag, to be honest, because I was quite sick at the time. But this is when I went cold turkey, no sugar. And I would say that it gave me, um, I mean, I still do. I still do cut sugar, right? I have very limited sugar in my diet. I only have low glycemic fruits, and that's basically what I have as sugar.
Which ones are
Um,
they?
Blueberries, cherries. I mean, I do a lot of berries type of thing. Berries, high antioxidants. They're a slower sugar. They don't enter into the bloodstream so quickly. I'm very prone to a sugar crash, so I still have to be careful with that whole mechanism. And so I just, I've kept that since I was 32 and now I'll be 55. That's 23 years later.
Yeah.
And I've really had sugar out for a really long time. My insulin's really low. You can tell I have not had a lot of sugar exposure because my insulin's like two, you know? And so
Yeah. I
it's
mean, you
just,
should be in a coma if we listen to the doctors, but I'm about the same and we feel fine.
yeah, yeah. So I keep the sugar really low and I keep my blood sugar balanced. I will have, low starch carbs and things like that occasionally. But if I get too much sugar in my system, even a small bite of a dessert when I'm out just to try it, it's too much for my system. I can feel it hit my system like a poison
Yeah.
and it literally I can feel the drop in my system. And
Wow.
then the ensuing blood sugar drop, and then the ensuing cravings. And this is one of the first things I do with my clients, and I have to because most people come into my clinic with um, the blood sugar roller coaster. And they're not necessarily running high blood sugar unless they're like a type 2 diabetic. But here's the thing, they're still suffering from hypoglycemia because of their high sugar surges of consumption, because invariably sugar goes up, it's coming down, right?
Exactly.
Um,
Exactly.
so intracellularly or functional hypoglycemia. So and keeping really establishing that new blood sugar regulation is a foundational piece I work on with all my clients, and everybody that comes in, they all suffer from hypoglycemia
Wow.
because high surges of sugar intake at different parts of the day, oftentimes in the morning with a high sugar, high starch type of beginning, and that begins and ensues the blood sugar roller coaster.
Yeah, because you'd think, as regular people who haven't got your knowledge, your background, that if you're hypoglycemic, then you need sugar to bring your blood sugar level up. But what I'm hearing from you, and my experience also helping people, is that you only get a sugar crash, which is the regular name for hypoglycemia,
Mhm, mhm.
if your sugar has levels have spiked, right? So it's funny that your blood sugar evens out when you actually stop eating so much sugar. I want to take a quick break to say that if this is your first time here, then welcome and thank you for listening to this podcast. And whether you're new or a regular and you haven't yet rated or reviewed this podcast, could I ask you to scroll down and tap on the stars to rate this podcast and also to write a short review to let me know how this podcast is helping you in your life after sugar. I love reading your reviews. And when you rate and review this podcast, not only does it encourage me to continue making new episodes, but it also helps to share this podcast and have more people see it so that we can help more people feel better and lose weight with less sugar. So again, thank you for rating and reviewing this podcast and for spreading the word about sugar.
Yeah, because your body gains a better regulation for it, and it also really depends, what you're eating too. We look at so many angles from, okay, say you're eating a slow release carbs, meaning it's entering into the bloodstream slower, the glucose is, right? So there's a slower rise of that glucose, giving more gentle time for your pancreas to produce the insulin to say, okay, here comes the insulin. We're going to help get that glucose out of the bloodstream and let's drop it off to the cells who are going to welcome it in through their little doors, right? And then go inside and process it with all those mechanisms. But what happens when they have these high hits of sugar and then you've got all this glucose in the bloodstream, and the pancreas is like, I'm trying to pump it out. And the cells are like, sorry, we're full. We can't take anymore. And then there ensues metabolic dis-ease, right?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and yet they still experience hypoglycemia because the blood sugar still can't get into the cell. And so then they've got this sense of cravings, but I just ate and what's going on? And so it's really has to be a rewiring of that mechanism step by step to regulate out that whole biochemical mechanism of getting that blood sugar regulated and getting the diet regulated so you're not spiking that blood sugar. So meal compositions, the food you're eating, what food you're eating first, they all make a huge difference because we're looking at stomach emptying, and then we're looking at what hormones are released there and after you eat whatever food you're eating,
yeah,
right? Like if you're
yeah,
eating protein, you're going to be releasing certain hormones that are going to say, oh, we're full, right? But if you're just eating sugar and carbs, it takes a lot longer for those same hormones to be released to say, oh, brain, we're full,
yeah, if ever, exactly. And
if
so,
ever.
yeah, What do you tell your clients to stop eating first, to cut first?
What's that? I mean, any refined sugar products are just out. There's just no place. There's no place. It's a non-negotiable in my work. Because
So,
why come into the high level work that we do together if you if you're not going to get on the ride, right? And the thing is, there's so many beautiful lateral shifts that are involved in my process that people are like, oh my God, this is good. This tastes great. It opens their mind to new possibilities. It takes a few weeks for the taste buds to transition back outside of that chemically induced hit, right? But once people start to taste a strawberry again, they begin to taste a blueberry, those things become sweet,
yeah. Yeah,
right?
it's like we're so used to in North America at least, like the flavors, strawberry flavored whatever, blueberry flavored whatever, watermelon flavored. And it's like we've almost forgotten what the actual foods taste like.
And we have to remember that those aren't just flavors, those are chemically produced, brain altering substances that the chemical food industry has made.
Yeah.
They are designed to to bump out that natural strawberry that grows in the field that has all the nutrients in it that God designed for our body to take in and grow with every cell to manufacture an addictive flavor.
Yeah. 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 Well said. And so after the what I call obvious forms of sugar or sources of refined sugar, what's next on the list of things that you ask your clients to cut out?
Definitely refined sugars, and we're also removing, like typically we do remove like high carby, starchy things,
Like what?
like, well, like for instance, bread, right? We remove grains in our process because it's a preliminary part to gut repair, but this is really the foundational part that I do, and we remove high lectin foods. And so we
What's
are
that?
removing most grains,
Okay.
right? We're removing all grains, not most, we're removing all grains. And so we're getting those out and legumes. And so there goes part of their carb hit that they're used to getting. But instead, we transition to really nutrient dense carbs that are lower starch, slower sugars, meaning they are slower to become glucose in your bloodstream. So we look more at sweet potatoes or butternut squash or any of the winter squashes, carrots, rutabagas, parsnips, these beautiful starches that are loaded with polyphenols, meaning plant nutrients, that know how to communicate with our DNA and know how to be processed in the body in a really nutrient dense way versus some white bread that's just holding together something in between, right?
Yeah, I get it. I get it. I mean, but that's a huge thing for most people to cut out bread because bread or, sort of bread-based products or flour-based products are often the basis for many, many diets in many, many cultures.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. And that is a transition. But I find really most people really begin to enjoy these other foods and once your body begins to be fed by these foods and you begin to feel the shift, that's where people just say, wow, I'm not going back. And
Mm,
there's not to say there aren't good breads that you can have. There's just a period of time in which we give the body a break in the beginning
yeah,
to get a lot of the disruption out of the way.
yeah,
And then later on, we can transition to, a truly fermented sourdough or a truly, really well-made kind of gluten-free type of bread,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Something that's really nutrient dense. But in the beginning 4 weeks, we really go through we call it a fresh start, but we go through it's a bit of an overhaul for most people.
yeah.
Yeah.
Where do you stand on fruit juices, fruit smoothies, that kind of thing?
Well, fruit juices. I think that they are just a direct line of glucose or fructose into your system. There's just no buffering because you remove the fiber and then it's straight sugar, whether it's from real fruit or not. It could be a beautiful, organic, whatever, orange juice, right? That's still a straight shot of glucose and fructose into your system. And so that's where I've learned myself many years ago, and then also repeatedly with clients that it's a direct response of raising glucose and therefore then raising insulin. And
Yeah.
it's unopposed. It's unopposed by fiber. It's unopposed by the full component of the food. Whereas when you look at a smoothie, you're putting in the whole blueberry, the whole strawberry, or the whole whatever, and that is going to give you more fiber. But I always go with low glycemic fruit in a fruit smoothie. And when you get into the mangoes and the papayas and the bananas and all this high fruit, high glucose, really fast acting sugars, that's going to give you a high and a big crash in about an hour or two, couple
Even in a
hours.
smoothie?
Yes, absolutely. Because still, it is going to raise your blood sugar and then it's going to drop. And if someone is going into something like that who does struggle with hypoglycemia, they're not going to have the inner mechanism to even like balance it out. They're going to have they're going to crash pretty early. So you just have to be really, really careful with that, especially if someone's struggling with fatigue. They have
Yeah.
to be really careful with something like that. You need more fat, you need more fiber, you got to have your protein. I call it PFF, not BFF, but your protein, fiber, and your fat in
Mm.
your smoothie, along with then a a slow sugar.
Okay.
Yeah, very low sugar. I wrote something called the Smart Smoothie Guide,
Yeah.
and it was a hit for a while because people were on all these fruit smoothies, and it's like, whoa, wait a minute, people are getting, you are driving, issues that you don't even realize. You're driving a 4 p.m. crash. You're driving munchies throughout the day because they're eating all these big fruit juices that are sold retail wise, and it's like, oh my goodness, you got to get a real meal in that smoothie and
Yeah.
get all the nutrients in that slow stomach emptying and that are highly nutrient dense. Yeah.
It's such a mindset shift because I would say general culture and the diet culture specifically tells us, you got to get more fruit and vegetables in your diet, so make a smoothie.
Yeah, you can make a smoothie. You just have to keep it smart, right? You got to keep it high protein, high fiber, good amount of fat in there, and to really stabilize. Unless that's for like a meal type of thing, but you could also, again, stabilize it a little bit with, adding in a little bit of avocado. That protein and fat and fiber, those are what blunt stomach emptying, right? They slow it down, especially the protein and the fiber. And
Hmm.
so you add those in that, especially, in a smoothie format, you're going to get more satiation and longer time than it's actually going to keep you balanced.
Yeah.
But once you start to feel that yawn and that kind of tired or fogginess, then, you don't need to reach for a cup of coffee. You just need to really work on keeping your blood sugar stable.
Yeah. I often say to the people that I help in my program, if you're getting that energy crash, before you reach out for something to get your energy back, look backwards at what you ate.
Yeah,
The last time you ate is probably what is more responsible for the energy crash than what
yep,
you're going to eat to get your energy back. In other words, if you eat food that doesn't cause an energy crash, you won't need to run to energy dense foods to get back from that slump.
yeah, exactly. I tell my clients the same thing. I'm like, look in the rearview mirror. What were the
Mhm.
last two meals, right? Or last meal? Because
Yeah.
you'll know if something isn't meeting your metabolic cycle to keep you running. You can feel it when you have a really satiating, balancing meal. You shouldn't have a rise or a decrease in energy. A rise in energy is typically a sign that you're running hypoglycemia. A dip in energy after eating, right after eating, is a sign of insulin resistance,
Hmm.
right? And
Yeah.
so those are like two functional medicine rules in the realms of of eating. It shouldn't shift your state of energy. It
Mm.
should be constant, right? And you should feel after a good meal steady, balanced, and clear
Yeah.
and satiated for like 4 hours, right? And
Yeah.
then kind of like a natural, oh, I'm hungry. All right. Well, let's have another beautiful, delicious, balanced
Yeah.
meal,
And
right?
4 hours, I mean, I personally feel full for about 20 hours after a meal that I eat. But, everyone's different. And yeah, it's just as the years roll on and I, year after year, don't eat foods that spike my insulin, I never get hungry. I just look forward to eating. And usually it's once, maybe twice in a day because I'm
Mm-hmm.
just not hungry.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy my food. That's not the same as being hungry.
Yeah.
Mm, yeah. And so, one last question. Have you ever had the symptoms of Lyme disease since your early 30s? Have you had them again?
There were times when I did have a little bit of a relapse. Yeah, but yeah.
Do you think it
Mhm.
would have been worse if you were still on sugar?
Oh yes, absolutely.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. I mean, you look great and you feel great, and really, that's what it's all about.
yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. And sugar just has no place. It can get up to such mischief with your immunity, with your gut health, with your metabolism, with your neurology, your state of mind. Um, it's a real bugger that can,
Yeah.
be hidden in someone's lifestyle, and they have no idea that may be what's causing their depression
Yeah.
or their weight loss resistance, and they don't even know where, or their pain and fatigue, and they have no idea, um, that it's lurking.
Yeah, yeah. And if people want to get in touch with you, how can they do that?
Yeah, they can reach me at Get Nourished. That's GetNourished.net. Yes, and they
Okay.
can contact me there, and they can also book a call there for a vitality consult.
All right, fantastic. Well, Sarah, thank you very much. Your story is very inspiring. And I think that the listeners listening to this episode will resonate with what you've told us today. Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. It's been an honor being here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Wow, it really impresses me when people don't just kind of wait around passively to find a solution to their health struggles. And for Sarah, taking action to find what could help her Lyme disease symptoms led her to cutting sugar, which she may never have done had she not actually educated herself and taken those steps to find how she herself could help her own body. And I love all the advice she gives. I myself am not a big fan of smoothies because, quite honestly, I find it much quicker and simpler to just eat a piece of fruit. But, you know, each to his own or her own. And the bottom line is that Sarah's message, just like mine, is to encourage you to educate yourself and take action to feel better and, yes, look better. And that's what I teach inside of the Freedom from Cravings Formula program. In the program, you'll get step-by-step guidance and customized support through the 5-step formula that I've developed to help you get control over cravings so that you can finally live your life with more energy and fit into your favorite clothes effortlessly and feel confident in your food choices so that you can ditch the shame and embarrassment that you feel every time your emotions make you slip or fall off the wagon, and so that you never feel like you're on some kind of restrictive diet. If you're at the stage of your life when you're finally ready to look after yourself, let's chat. You can talk directly to me on a free clarity call at any time by going to aftersugarclub.com and clicking on program at the top. You'll also find the link with the show notes together with this episode. So go to aftersugarclub.com. Speak to you soon. That's it for this week. Keep in touch and see you soon for another episode.